Bryson Stott seems to be a lot more aggressive in his swings this year. He's like aggressive early in the counts, not really taking a lot of pitches. I mean, he'd been a guy who in the past would work a pitcher, take 2 strikes, and then be unafraid to bat with 2 strikes. Like he's totally comfortable to be at the plate with 2 strikes on him and trying to work a pitcher, right? But he seems to be a little bit more aggressive. It hasn't really translated to great results yet. But I think it's a kind of part of the cat and mouse game where maybe a lot of pitchers were just sneaking easy strikes by him to get ahead in the count. And now him being aggressive maybe forces them to think twice about that. And maybe sets himself up for better pitches later in an at bat. What is your take on it so far? Obviously, you're not going to rush to judgment after 9 games, but like what is kind of your take on that?
I mean, when he was good in 2024, he was a really good breaking ball hitter. And I think he still has that potential to be a guy that reads counts well and can, if you're going to hang a breaking ball late in a count, he can read it. And especially now with the lower hands, he's good at staying behind the ball and being able to, use all fields, kind of get those breaking balls late in the count. I wonder how much of it was psychologically, maybe when he was struggling a little bit, especially last year, he regressed a little bit on hitting breaking balls. So he was maybe trying to attack some different fastballs. Now this seems like he's attacking fastballs from a position of power, knowing, hey, if I'm down in the count, I'm a little bit more confident. I can be able to be more comfortable hitting from behind in the count, which I think a lot of these hitters in this lineup aren't necessarily. And that's why they're a little on the jumpy side. And I think some of it's also him maybe trying to put a little bit more of a harder swing on the ball, a little bit more kind of dictating at bats a little bit, as opposed to just taking what they give him. I think that's a good sign. I think it's a good sign that some of the positives that he collected over the last 2 months of last season are still carrying over. I don't think we give enough credit for how difficult what he did last year was. And obviously there wasn't maybe a ton of warm and fuzzies down the stretch in the way the season ended. But, for a guy to rework his swing pretty substantially mid-season, that was a pretty significant change. And I think he knew he needed to make some significant changes. And he's done that. And I think being a little bit more aggressive maybe is part of that dynamic to say, hey, maybe the difference for me in being an okay to good hitter and being a good to great hitter is if I can dictate matchups and I can jump on fastballs that are favorable for me. It still hasn't translated into a lot of power quite this year. I think he's only got the 1 extra base hit so far. But it's a possibility that this can kind of get him going a little bit more, in that he'll use all fields, but if he's dictating his pitches, those are the ones he can pull. Those are the ones that he can gap and turn into some extra bases.
I'm not big on lineup discussion because I don't think it matters all that much. I think there are certain little nuances to it that matter, but for the most part, I don't think it matters all that much.
I think there's a lot of guys in this lineup that can strike out just as easily in the 2-hole or the 7-hole.
Yeah, correct. So with that said, while Stott is working on this and figuring this out and trying to identify, what kind of hitter he wants to be, Brandon Marsh continues to hit, right? And I think that they said on the broadcast that he has the best or second best batting average in baseball since May 1st of last year. It's hitting over 300, and he's behind only Trey Turner, who has the best, right? And he's gotten off to a really good start so far this season. Would you consider, at least against righties, flipping the 2 of them, batting Marsh in the 5 spot, since it's more of a run production spot in your lineup, and dropping Stott to 7, where he can still do the things that he's doing and potentially, try and get that going in the right direction.
I think when we open the discussion of the lineup, you get to the kind of the whole house of cards falls apart, right? Because if everything's built around 2-3, and then you got to go left, right the whole way, then all of a sudden everything gets thrown off. You don't have a right-handed cleanup hitter, but you have to have a right-handed cleanup hitter because of Schwarber and Harper. And I think Bryson Stott at his best is a perfect number 6 hitter. When you can have some guys after him, I think JT Realmuto might be, well, he's probably an 8 hitter at this point. So yes, that is a consideration because you are going to get a little bit more power with Marsh. I also, though, think that lining up, if you were to line up Marsh, Bohm, if you were to line up Bohm, Marsh, Garcia, those are 3 kind of sort of strikeout guys a little bit more than maybe if you have Stott in there. Not that Stott doesn't strike out with some regularity, but I think maybe that's, at least with Stott, you have the ability to kind of put the ball in play a little bit more and maybe kind of move things around. But then again, maybe you don't necessarily need that for that position. So yeah, I think it is a valid thing to kind of look at. Obviously, Rob Thompson's not a huge move guys around in the order. Let me check the stats. Yeah, so Brandon Marsh had 110 strikeouts last year in 133 games. Stott had 91. So I think you're going to get a little bit more contact. You're going to get a little bit more contact, a little bit making things happen, but you're going to obviously get less slug with Stott in the 5-hole. He's not really a 5-hole hitter, I don't think. I guess Marsh profiles a little bit better that way. But I also think that there's a lot of guys in this lineup that are hitting in places that I don't necessarily think suit them all that much, short of 1 through 3 and 9. I think other than that, you could kind of throw them up in the air every day and arrange them differently, but that's not the way Rob Thompson's batting orders are. A first do no harm situation of just like, all right, you guys are good with it. We know where we're at. Go hit the ball.